Okay, I think we're up. Happy Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm Kelly Caseman, the Executive Director of Think Kids. Thank you for joining us to talk about family treatment court today. I'm excited for this conversation because we don't always get to talk about the big ideas that are moving the needle for kids and families affected by the drug crisis. Today we do, and with some of the best people making those changes. We'll have some links to the programs and people we're talking with today in the comments after today's discussion. If you'd like to learn more about Think Kids Project to respond to the needs of kids affected by the drug crisis, it's funded by the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation. Visit our website at thinkkidswv.org. So with that, let's meet the panelists in alphabetical order. Stephanie Bond is the Director of Probation Services with the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia. Hello, Stephanie.
Good morning.
Felicia Bush, CEO of Harmony Mental Health Incorporated.
Morning.
Chautle Haught, Family Treatment Court Specialist, Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, let's start with the obvious first question. What is Family Treatment Court?
I will take that. Family Treatment Court is a voluntary program for those that are involved with the abuse and neglect system, CPS. They are the ones that have had their children removed. They are involved with the court system. They have been adjudicated, meaning they have found that they have abused or neglected their children. The abuse or neglect has had to have been found to have a substance abuse, a contributing factor. It's voluntary, like I said, and Family Treatment Court takes the place of a traditional improvement period. It's very intensive. And what it is, it's very structured. It joins the court program, CPS, and mental health. And we all come together, and it's a weekly meeting with a treatment team. And they meet weekly to discuss maybe progress and barriers. And it has like that treatment team. And part of that treatment team, and Felicia will speak on this, is a treatment provider, and she can go into a little bit about that, of what that looks like. So if you want to speak a little bit what you see on your end of it.
Certainly. So there are several different types of treatment providers that are involved with Family Treatment Court. You're going to have your substance use treatment facilities, so places that they can go when they are in recovery or seeking recovery. And then you have your traditional mental health providers that might deal more with the causes of the substance abuse, more with the initial trauma. And then you have what we call ASO providers, or socially necessary service providers, who provide these traditional services that are offered as part of a treatment, as part of an improvement plan through Child Protective Services. And that would include agencies that provide parenting, adult life skills, safety services, and supervised visits and supervision services. And those are the services that are put in place with families who are going through the Child Protective Services process to see if they can either prevent their children being removed or achieve reunification with their children. So those are the basic providers of the services.
So we're going to talk about where they are in a minute, but when you start a family treatment court, how do you get all of these kind of services together in one place, working collectively?
So normally all of these services are in place for an improvement period. When folks come into the abuse and neglect system, when you have an improvement period, they come in and we want them, even in a traditional case, we want them to have parenting. We want them to have adult life skills. We want them into mental health treatment. We want them in substance abuse treatment. But we look at these parents and we want them to get all of these services on their own with the work of the CPS worker, of course. But in Family Treatment Court, we have a case coordinator that's dedicated to Family Treatment Court that's employed by the Division of Probation Services. that helps helps the parent utilize all those services. They get all those services together. So we're able to bring all of those services together at the table weekly. They're all part of that treatment team together. So it's a collaborative approach. So everyone's already there. So there's no, I got to make those phone calls. I've got to get this. I've got to get that. So everybody's already right there. So there's no time. We're not missing that time. There's no lapse. We don't, there's no go home and I've got to figure all of this out. Because while we're trying to figure all of this out at the very beginning, we're still in the active addiction. So we have these folks that have that fog, and we're looking at them and saying, go navigate these extremely difficult systems. Good luck. And if we were able to do that, we wouldn't be where we are. So we're breaking down all of these difficult systems, and we have it all together. We're at a one-stop place every week. And if there are issues and if there are barriers, we address them every week.
Right. So that differs from the traditional system where those you have MDT meetings, but they're every 90 days to review the case. So this is an accelerated opportunity for parents, and it's fantastic, obviously, for the opportunity to get parents in a position where they can reunify with their children as quickly as possible.
Yes.
I remember Judge Tabbitt saying during presentation last year to CPS workers, she said, as soon as you leave the court, you need to start finding these services and arranging them, because if you don't do it now, we're probably going to have to delay the next court appearance because you're not going to be able to get them done in time. So I can see from that perspective as well how this can be really beneficial for the system itself to ensure that people get their services. I'm going to pull up a map of where all these are. Stephanie, do you want to talk about how it all got started in West Virginia?
Sure. We started actually in the fall of 2018. We started contacting children and family. Well, we basically Googled family treatment courts because Judge Will Thompson, prior Judge Will Thompson from Boone County, was begging for one. He had done the research. He knew all about them. So we then, we Googled, we found the organization Children and Family Futures. We started talks with them. But then by the time the session came into play, we were still talking with Children and Family Futures, but they wanted Judge Thompson and myself to speak about our drug courts and the possibility of the family treatment court, which kind of took us a little bit by surprise that they even were aware that they had heard from Judge Thompson about these and were very interested. So basically, by the time the session was over, they had put into code that we were to start family treatment courts that year. And I don't remember exactly how many we were supposed to have in place the first year. I think maybe 5. But we had 9 months to get that up and running. We had to form our state advisory board. We had to write our policies and procedures, figure out what counties were going to go first. We had to hire basically an expert in CPS because that wasn't us. That's where we fortunately got Chautle. We had to get funding. It was a very fast 9 months, but we did it and opened our first 3 that fall and 2 additional ones, and I believe the following February. And just continue to open.
So what are the plans? Is there a hope to have one in every county? Is that feasible?
I don't think that's realistic. For one, services are not available at this point in every county, unfortunately. Not every county struggles as much as others, with child removal from the home. So because we do look at that when selecting what is the percentage of children in that county who are removed from the home. Plus, the judges have to volunteer for this. Our judges that run our treatment courts, they don't receive any extra compensation. They don't receive a smaller docket. All of this is done. They fit it into their schedule, or they work evenings to get that accomplished, because they believe so much in these courts.
Wow. So yeah, it seems, from what I remember when it opened, I was there when was it Boone County that was one of the first ones that opened? I remember being there, and Judge Thompson was very animate, and I've heard other judges who really beat the drum that this is, really kind of the way to go. It's not fast, it's not easy, but it's a great way to ensure that families stay together.
Yes.
And don't become kind of casualties of a fractured system. So let's go through kind of the logistics in that, who is part of the team and what do their daily workloads look like?
So there are members of the treatment team that are required to be there per code. The judge, the prosecuting attorney, CPS, the manager for the district, and the GAL, but each county is so different because of the resources. So each county has different facets to each of their treatment team. Say for instance, in Wood County, Felicia serves on their treatment team consistently every week as an ASO provider. And she has developed different things in her county that aren't available in some of the other counties, such as a reunification group. They're the first ones in their county to have a reunification group. In other counties, they have a West Virginia extension agent on their treatment team. There are school officials that serve on the treatment team. So our case coordinator are on the treatment team, of course, but and peer recovery support specialists are a new addition to most of our treatment teams, and they are funded through the state opioid grants, your grants. So they are part of our treatment team. So for our case coordinators that are with our division, their day-to-day duties are to have literally daily interactions with our participants. They meet with them via text, phone call, in person. They coordinate all of their services in terms of the mental health, the substance abuse. They interact with the CPS worker almost daily. They interact with various members of the treatment team. They make sure that the visits are parenting time are scheduled. We make sure, the coordinators make sure that those are conducted and they're able to see their children. They make sure transportation, and the CPS worker is very intense. They are dedicated to just this to family treatment court, which is very advantageous. And we have come to find out that really West Virginia is one of the very few across the country that has that dedicated CPS worker. And I think that that's part of our success. They're able to just focus on just our participants. And that's been a big help because we know their caseloads are tremendous. Their time is so limited. So having that ability to just focus on our participants is huge. One of the things that's very different with family treatment court is our participants see their children immediately. As soon as they enter into family treatment court, they see their children immediately, regardless of the outcome of urine drug screens or whatever drug screen mechanisms is in play. Unless there's a safety issue, they see their children. That's very different than a traditional case. So having that makes things very difficult for all of the members of the team because we need to make sure that those kids see their parents for parenting time. So that makes all of those things different. So we have to make sure that that happens. So it's a lot, but we've made it happen. We've made it work. So it's been great.
That
Sorry, go ahead, Stephanie.
that parenting time and having that so quickly is such a motivator for the parents, because in traditional CPS, it might be 3 months before they get to see their kids, depending on what's going on, the staffing, where the kid is located. And we make sure, as Chautle said, that they get to see their child immediately. And so, you can't really, it's going to motivate you if you know you're going to see your child all the time. If you don't have, there's no visit in sight set up, you don't have as much motivation, because you're already in active addiction. You don't trust the system. You don't trust yourself. You don't know what to do, how to do it, where to go, all of that. So it really changes their lives.
It's huge for children. As a child trauma therapist, it makes such a difference to children to stay connected to their parents. Too often we think that we have to protect children from, we do have to protect children, but these children have lived with their addicted parents. They know what it looks like. They're able to, and when you just remove them and they don't know what's happening, that's frightening for a child. They know how their parent is doing by being able to see them. And so from a long-term trauma perspective, a trauma lens, this is critical to reducing the impact of trauma on children, is for them to have access to their parents as quickly as possible.
That's such an important point. Felicia, I want to hear more about these. Was that a reunification group? Is that what you mentioned?
Yes, yeah. There are a couple groups. One thing that we do, and we do have available in our counties and have had, we have one of the other groups that in Wood County that we focus on is called Ending Violence Education. It's a group I developed back in 2006 when I was with the domestic violence program, and they still operate that group in Charleston, but it's for people who've experienced domestic violence. So that's another specialization that CPS workers just in general will refer to, so that people can learn about healthy relationships and they understand, but they also understand that with substance abuse, then often domestic violence becomes part of that picture. And it's important to address that. So ending violence education is something we've always had available. We've just changed it up a little bit for family treatment courts so that they don't have to wait. So instead of having a cohort that starts and then 22 weeks later, we have a second cohort, we have a continuing group, which is definitely taxed to my staff because I'm bringing people in and how we do that, but they're enjoying it so much. The reunification group we call it Phoenix Rising. And it is focused on helping parents to prepare for the return of their children and to be there as a resource after their children have returned home. And because often what happens in the typical CPS system is that once you get your kids back, your case is closed and all your supports go away, all your services go away. And as glad as those parents are to be done with their parenting and done with this and not jump through this hoop and that hoop, we have taken away all the supports just when the majority of the stress comes, because we have just the stress of parenting anyway. And then we have that added guilt and shame that we get when we've screwed up as a parent. And now we've got kids there. And then we're afraid to reach out for the help that we need because we're afraid there's going to be a negative impact. If we say, hey, I'm struggling with this, we're afraid, they're going to take my kids back. They're going to think I can't handle this. So this group, which was proposed by Wood County, and they asked us if we would develop something. We've been thrilled to develop it, and we're trying to do it in a very strategic way so it can be duplicated. We're collecting data. Fortunately, I run a mental health agency along with the ASO services that we provide, and so I have psychologists who set things up so that they are evidence-based. They're always with the data. So, but when people reach a certain milestone, and I think it's milestone 4, is that correct? Milestone 4 that they start, then they can start attending the group. And it starts with some education about trauma. And one of the most telling things. I think the biggest kind of aha moment, no matter what mindset people come in with. Some people come in with, oh, this is one more hoop I have to jump through. That's what most of them come in. Like, well, here's another hoop. I have to jump through it. And then they get here and we say, this is for you. And so you're going to help develop this, especially this first group coming through, because it's going to be based on what you need from us. But it's not here to punish you. It's here to support you. And you can tell people that all day long, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily believe you. But the first real big aha moment that I had is I do a presentation on trauma and just its impact on children. And we do their ACE score from their childhood, from 0 to 18 in their lives. And then we do the ACEs for each of their children. And to look at that, to see where they came from, and to see, juxtapose that against what have your children experienced, usually as a result of the choices we made as a parent, and what kind of parent do you want to be? So that's been fantastic. And the sweet spot for me is that moment when they realize that this is not something that's being done to them, it's something that's being done for them. And you see it, sometimes you see it in family treatment court before they ever get to the reunification group. Some people get that, but the moment that they get it, that's when change happens. That's when they're like, okay, I can be successful at that, at this process. So anyway, that's a little bit about our groups.
That's fantastic. We're going to mention two things that I've heard over the years and then ask you to share some success stories. Our mutual friend, Andrea Dar, often says, we now have drug endangered children raising drug endangered children. And it was Stephanie who said a couple of years ago, when I asked her about family treatment court, she said, we have people who are part of the program who have never been parented before. So this is a whole new life situation for them. And then they're not used to having people who are investing in them. So they're not spending time with them, not, kind of showing that they care if they get to the other side and, reunify with their family. So do any of you want to share any stories on some successes that you've had with the program?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I'll definitely agree that, we've had some folks that have been through the system several times over and, have never thought that it mattered. And I can say as a worker with CPS, there's not been any time that I was out in the field that a parent said, go ahead and take them. This is what I wanted. I mean, they didn't have their children for me to come and take them. I mean, they didn't want to become addicted. This is not what they wanted for their lives. So, of course, to have something different has been a wonderful experience to see. In the same token, most of our coordinators were previous either CPS supervisors or CPS workers. And Felicia talked about that aha moment. We've had that aha moments with our case coordinators too. And that's been enlightening too, to realize that we've only done what we could do with what we've had. We have a system that we're doing the very best that we can with what we are doing. And with family treatment court, we have the time to take with our folks to do something different. So for me, that success is we're doing better for our people. And that's been a good success for me, but also our parents that have been through the system several times. We have one particularly that she had either relinquished or she had terminated on 4 or 5 of her other children. And she had another baby, and the judge said, I want her in family treatment court. And this was very, very early on. And I said, Your Honor, okay, good luck. And he said, well, I want to try. Okay. And he let mom and dad in. And I think it was one of our very first couples. and the baby was very, very young. And they came in, they did fairly well. Mom did well. The mom was doing better. Dad was still like, he wasn't buying in. I told the coordinator, go see dad with the baby. And she called me and she said, well, that was enlightening. I never really saw dad as dad. I saw dad as participant. And she said that was interesting. So they ended up graduating. And to this day, they are doing very well. And that was almost 2 years ago. One of their children had not achieved permanency yet. So the judge was able to get them back with mom, and that was not dad either. That was not the dad, but was able to get permanency with that mom, and they're doing extremely well. So that's a success. The other success I think that we're having is that we have peer recovery support specialists that were graduates of family treatment court, and they're doing extremely well. They meet on a weekly basis with each other, and they're able to share with each other of, do you remember? I'm seeing this now. What can we do to help? Let's talk about this. Let's talk, I remember, this is what's going on with this one. They're in this milestone. I experienced this. What did you experience? So seeing that and knowing that they were not that far from it, but for them, that was a long time ago. That's a success.
I remember hearing a woman speak at a graduation, and she was talking about, she and her, I don't know if it was her husband, boyfriend, but they had 3 beautiful, beautiful little girls that they had received reunification with. And she was talking about how CPS had been to her house 13 times prior to child removal. I mean, she had chance after chance, but in her mind, when she was under the influence, she didn't understand what she was doing wrong. She thought, her kids were fed, her kids were clothed. She didn't get it. And looking back, she said, I wish they would have taken them on the first visit, because, she just didn't know what she didn't know. And that couple was still doing fantastic. And Chautle could probably tell you, but I think they just got a home loan to buy their first home. We have so many success cases. We could stay here all day and tell you about graduates and how well they're doing.
Yeah. And it's making sure also, Felicia, their county, Wood County, is getting ready to have their very first graduates, but it's also making sure that we celebrate the little successes. And it's not always getting to that graduation, but it's celebrating the success of having a relationship with a child that you've never had before. I know they have one that's, she's never had a relationship with her child that's older, and she has that now. And part of that is because the coordinator went and found her. And that would have never happened just because of time constraints that our workers face. And she literally went looking for her. So, that's one of the things that is beautiful about family treatment court. So.
One of the things that that I take as a sign of success is one of the things that we first do when people enter the reunification group is we do a thing called circles of support. And so we ask them to identify the people that are in their lives that they feel are there, for their support and their benefit. Who are the important people in your life? What role do they play? When they first come in, it has a lot of exterior folks. And then it may have their CPS worker or the caseworker or family treatment court. And then we do this at several intervals. So we had a new influx of folks coming to the court. So that was a good time for us to do, to reassess the people who've been in the reunification group for a while. And so we had the initial folks who were doing their initial supports, but our people who've been in it for a while, how they had replaced those initial, they have pruned away the people who aren't interested in their sobriety and their success. And they've replaced it with a lot of some of it are service providers, but also the sustainable part is that they've reached out and connected with people who will facilitate their ongoing success in their life outside of us paid providers and formal systems. And that's what you need for sustainability, to make that transition of people that aren't, and we talk about change and how people, no matter what it is, when you change, you upset the balance of what people expect of you. And some people can support that change and some people can't. And how important it is to recognize who those people are and then put them in the proper place in your life so that you can move toward the life that you want for yourself. So that's, I think, is a success, story as they progress through the system.
I've seen them utilize each other as such a support system. We had a case at the beginning of COVID where the case coordinator was having groups online with everybody and could not participate one night. Well, all of the participants did it anyways. They did it themselves without anybody from the court system, without anybody from DHHR. They all got online. They picked a topic they were going to discuss and they did it. So, I mean, it's if you haven't been around a family treatment court, been around a graduate or a graduation, it is something that will truly move you.
And even we have the EVE group, the Ending Violence Education Group that I told you, it follows the Phoenix Rising group. So we have, not all members of the Phoenix Rising group are in the EVE group because they all haven't experienced domestic violence, but there are a few. And we got a call from a lady who has nothing to do with family treatment court, but was recruited by one of our family treatment court participants. She's like, you need this group. And she comes now voluntarily, no court's making her come. And I'm like, how did you find us? And she's like, she told me that I need this group. And, so that's their ambassadors too, for help. And that's, I think, extraordinary.
I love these stories. Thanks. I'm going to share some comments from Beth Collins that we have online. She said, I love the inclusivity of biological parents from the beginning. The Sisters of St. Joe's Health and Wellness Foundation has been inspired by the work being done in Ohio County. Has there been any data collected to show the long-term impact of family treatment courts in other areas or that is being planned in West Virginia?
We do data collection. Because we are so new, it's going to take a little while before we see the impact, but we have started that data collection, and I can share some numbers. To date, we have served, well, actually not to date, as of the end of January of 2022, we have served 335 individuals since September of 2019. We have accepted, these are statewide numbers, statewide of the counties that we serve. We have accepted 210 participants. We have had 62 graduates. We have had 333 children involved. We have had 95 children reunified. And we have had 80 children achieve permanency. Now, in family treatment court, when we say permanency, that means those children have been able to been reunified with their children, or children have been able to reunify with their parents. And permanency means their case has been dismissed from the docket and they are done with DHHR. So that's a huge plus. And for us, one of the big things that we look at is the time that children are removed from their home and they are reunified with their parents. And in family treatment court, that time is 10 months, 10.4 months. So from removal to back in the home is 10.4 months. And our permanency in family treatment court is 15.1 months. So those are some early statistics, but we're pretty proud of some of those statistics. So, and we will continue to collect that data And we have some other data points that we look at that we're going to start collecting and kind of compare, hopefully, to some of the state statistics. So.
It's great. Thanks for sharing those numbers. Beth also said, how can a private foundation help expand the program to other counties and ensure that more families can enroll in counties where family treatment courts already exist?
You can support providers.
I'm sorry.
You can support providers and programs, provide funding for, for the facilitation of programs, things that aren't covered by, ASO services or treatment costs. Most, a lot of these services are not covered.
And if I understood Beth right, it was that to expand to other counties. Is that what she was saying, that are within maybe the same area of a family treatment court?
I think she's looking at both expand into other counties, but also kind of expand the capacity.
So a lot of the capacity issues and expanding really is up to the judge, because how much can that judge handle and how much can his worker handle? And then you have funding. We were fortunate in Nicholas County, their family treatment court exploded, and we actually had funding for another worker. So they have 2 case coordinators there, still 1 judge, but 2 case coordinators to deal with all of the folks involved. But we don't have that funding available. That was a fluke where we had an extra position that it just happened. But to expand beyond our parameters would take additional funding, as well as the additional work by the judges.
Great, thanks for that. What challenges, good segue, what challenges remain to implementing and expanding the model?
So part of it is time, because we are a very small office and we've expanded very quickly, but also funding. The Office of Drug Control Policy has been incredible. Previously with Bob Hansen and now with Dr. Matt Christensen, they have continued to fund the majority of our family treatment courts. We have a grant for 1, and we are getting ready to apply for a grant for at least 3 more that we can open hopefully within the next year. So it's, but the legislature has also been very, very supportive and has assured us that when the time comes that we need appropriations from them to continue the courts, that they would do that. So we've been pretty fortunate. We also, again, like I said, we have to look at which judges volunteer to do that. And we kind of put that in with which counties are in the most need. And then we also look at what services are in place to be able to help or can be created in order to help with the family treatment court. We work real close with DHHR because, we have to get a dedicated CPS worker from them. So if you're in a county that really struggles to hire any CPS workers, it's not likely that they're going to be able to give one to the family treatment court to dedicate. We're hopeful things with that will change in the future. Jeff Pack has been very involved and very supportive of this, as has his deputies. So we're very hopeful for the future.
I'll say years ago when, kind of the first ripple effect, I would say around 2015, when I started talking with policymakers about the effects of the opioid epidemic, now the drug crisis on kids. I remember one of our U.S. senators saying to me, we got to get these kids out of those homes. Like that was his answer. And then talking with legislators, it was almost the same thing. I mean, I had one that mentioned bringing back orphanages. It was very stigmatizing. You want these kids away from their parents. Like that was their first gut reaction was the parents are the problem. You've got to get them out of there. But in my opinion, it seems to me as if what has happened with family treatment court has have many of them reimagine what success means. And they see it as reunification. And that is such a positive step in the right direction. The policymakers are understanding that, and they want to invest in it. You know, they from the conversations I've had, they get that it takes time and, you know, not every family can go through it. It's not going to become this big process where, you know, it can be in every county and every family can go through it, but they see the advantages to it. And so I think that that's one of the successes of the model.
I was the same way. I was the exact same way. I thought, get those kids away from these parents, you know, but I didn't know evidence-based research that had been and is currently being done. I didn't realize that how much trauma that is to the youth to remove them. In my mind, it was the trauma was them staying in the home, which is, but then you tackle on removing them from everything they knew and everybody they knew. You know, I wasn't aware of any of that. And the biological components of that and the brain and you know, adolescent development. I wasn't aware. So I was the same way.
I think the key word you just said there was trauma.
Yeah,
that's one of our challenges is the lack of mental health care in the state.
And I mean, when we heap systemic trauma on top of children, you know, by removal, that's a traumatic experience in and of itself. So, you know, we know, and in the mental health field, we've always known that children are best in their family of origin if that family could be made safe for them. It eliminates questions in the future about why wasn't I good enough? Why wasn't I important enough? Why, you know, all of these whys and wherefores. Why didn't my parents want me? Life's hard enough. We don't need to pile on those questions where we can avoid it. And so 10.5 months as opposed to 2 or 3 years in a system before a child can achieve permanency is huge. It's a huge difference in the life cycle of a child. And while a child still has a childhood, you know, we just know how important that is. And so this is huge for a child's well-being overall.
Sure. Because in adults, 1 year, I mean, it just flies by for us. Not a lot of significant changes. It's no big deal. But a year in the life of a child, that's huge. There's so much developmentally that goes on that needs to be positive. And those children need to know that it's not that their parents didn't want them. It's not that their parents, this is what we hear all the time from others is, well, if they wanted to stop for their kids, they would stop for their kids. These are people that don't understand addiction. They don't understand that disease. And so that stigma is out there and those kids hear that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's a whole lot of things rolled into one.
That's one of the things that's very interesting with Family Treatment Court is the difference is the ongoing training that we do require of the treatment team. That they have to go through consistently and the judges have to go through. And we've also seen almost a bleed over in the circuits that it's kind of changed that thinking. There's been a shift that they have stopped requiring that 3 clean screens before you see your children. So that's been a huge thing that we didn't anticipate. So that's been wonderful to see. A lot of our children have wanted to meet not only the judges, but they've wanted to meet the team. You know, they've wanted to see those that have made the changes, not just in their parents' lives, but in theirs. You know, we had a young man in one of the counties that wanted to meet the man in the dress that helped his parents, which we loved, but it was the old man in the dress. We don't like to point out the old man part, but he wanted to meet the man in the dress that helped his parents. So, you know, we facilitated that. We wanted to make sure that he knew he connected that. And that made an impact on him. And his parents are still doing well and they've graduated a year ago. So, you know, having that positive experience. And we wanted to also make sure that if possible, the CPS workers that removed them, we want them at that graduation too. if there's no more, if that wouldn't be a traumatic event for them, but to possibly heal that. So, we want the family treatment court to not just be a positive experience for the parents, but for the children as well.
That's such an important point. We talk often about kids get these perceptions of systems, of being very penalizing, that you can't trust them. And that seems to start at a very early age. So they start kindergarten and school with you don't want to talk to anyone, trust anyone. And kind of, I'm sure it's cathartic for both the kids, but also CPS workers, for example, who are probably feeling a little overburdened, like there aren't any successes. Suddenly they get to hear and be a part of a success story. It's probably really meaningful for them.
Our family treatment court case CPS workers they're amazing, and they have such positive relationships with the participants, and they really never had the opportunity to have that with someone before, because again, we've talked about their caseload, and they're just going from one to another, one crisis and this crisis, and with this they actually get to be a social worker. They get to help the people. That's what they've wanted all along, and they get to do that, and they are doing that.
Right. The communication is so much better than the normal system. Just that constant contact and constant information from a provider perspective. If we don't hear from the participant, we hear from the worker, the CPS worker, we hear from the case coordinator. So that's been fantastic to see. And if you've never been in family treatment court, the first thing that I saw and I thought, well, this is a little cheesy, is clapping, applauding. After, the judge speaks to someone and sees how they are, they applaud. I thought, that's a little cheesy. I feel kind of silly. And then I realized that, first of all, how many of us in our normal lives, unless we're in entertainment, get applauded ever? Not since I think my 5th grade play or something have I been applauded. But how empowering that is, and how much it's a recognition of what you've already accomplished. And then it's faith in what you're going to continue to accomplish. But for everyone and they didn't have to have a perfect week to get to be, applauded. It's that they were there and they were trying their best. And even when they have a setback, they're still trying. And I think that's huge. I know for my staff who too often see, and unless they're therapists get to see the progress of a case. ASO workers don't always get to see that. So I'm fortunate that I have both. So I get to see how it progressed through therapy if we have the whole case. But some of our staff only see the beginning, and they don't get to see anything positive happen in the end. And this has just been huge for them, as people are successful. And when they're as excited about, when the kids come home as, almost as much as the parents are. So it's great for the workers in the field as well. It really is.
I think Felicia touched on earlier about when the kids come home, we stay in their lives at least 90 days after the kid is reunified, because we also recognize that that's a time of a lot of stress for the parent and for the child. And so, we want to make sure they have all the support that they need for at least those first 3 months. Most of our graduates stay in touch and still stay in touch, whether they've been out 2 years or 6 months, they stay in touch with folks.
I love hearing all these positive experiences and what's going well, because as we touched on in this kind of line of work that you're in, there aren't a lot of, positive stories and good stuff going on. So I think it's important to share and feed on them. What ideas do you have to build on to improve the system?
Well, when we met with Mr. Pack and Melanie Urquhart, one of his director or deputy commissioners, and some workers from Kanawha County, we talked about how this is not going to be able to, automatically be statewide. And even in, for example, a county like Kanawha, there's only so many people we can take, and there is such a great need. And so we would like the philosophies of family treatment court and the practices of that to kind of be a paradigm shift for our state DHHR so that they start seeing and doing the same things even before they get into family treatment court or before they get into the court system. There is a model that is being tried in a few counties right now called START. And it's very similar to family treatment court, but it's before the children are removed. And it also centers around providing the support, which is the key to all of this, is those parents getting that support.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to have to write that down. Any other ideas for improving the model? No.
Just the biggest thing for me is just, we just keep looking at things that we can improve with what we're doing, because of course, nothing that we're doing is perfect. And just keep the training and the education and open-mindedness to that improvements.
I think reaching out to even further out to other systems. I know that one of the things that we've seen that kind of has slowed down some reunification is just a lack of childcare and the wait list to get appropriate childcare. So, starting that process earlier and seeing how we can improve that process statewide, which might fall into your next, your legislative question. But I think that's important. That can be a real barrier. It's a barrier for any parent trying to work, and but it can really slow down the process for some of these folks who have done everything they need. They're ready to reunify, but they're waiting for that childcare provider to appear.
That's so important. I need to make a note of that, there are probably some really good ideas on how to better collaborate between systems that are coming from those who are working in family treatment court, because they're sitting down and in a really kind of unique place to really have those discussions that we're not seeing in other kind of between siloed system and other areas. So Felicia alluded to one of the last questions. If we have legislators or local policymakers watching, what kind of policies or plans in place would help you and the families you serve?
Oh, wow. Well, I know that there are several groups who are starting the process of having parent navigators. Some people who are going to be, they might not have a whole team surrounding them, but they at least have one person to help walk them through the system. And I think that's essential. I think the peer recovery support specialists, they're a game changer. When you get these people that have been there, done that, that's who our participants really, really listen to and admire and strive to be like. So I think whatever the legislature can do to promote that, to encourage that, to fund those, I'm not real sure that's outside of the court system, but I know that they're a benefit.
I think too, shoring up the already existing systems. As a socially necessary service provider, I know that there are struggles and we're fortunate in that we access some grant funds and things to do some of the things that we do that other agencies aren't as fortunate to be able to do. And so I hear in meetings, just the struggle to maintain staff, the fact that, there haven't been any increases in reimbursement rates for as long as I've been doing it. So at least 15 years. Even the mileage rate isn't the federal mileage rate, and they just told us, there's no plans in place at this time to increase anything. And so I think it's unreasonable to expect people to enthusiastically participate when they're trying to just survive. And if you don't get people who get it, and I think that I'm fortunate that nobody at Harmony can tell me no, that this is something that's important to pursue. I'm in pursuit of child wellness. And so I can make those decisions where other people may find it more difficult to make. It's like you're asking us to do more for the same when we can't already do what's here for the same. So I think looking at those systems, that's what legislators need to do, looking at the need of DHHR and CPS. And if you really want to support your workers and not overburden them, which they are, and I don't know how they function, then you've got to give them providers who are able to help make up that difference. And that is dwindling instead of expanding. And we're going to need all those providers to do this and do it well across the state.
That funding, Felicia, would that be the Medicaid reimbursement?
No, it's not Medicaid reimbursement. It's the socially necessary services. So it's KEPRO. It's services for like parenting, and I mean,
Okay.
just an example is they came out with an evidence-based training they wanted people to take advantage of and to be able to offer as a parenting instructor. And the training, to obtain the training, $6,000, which the state would like reimburse you if you took it. The reimbursement is the same $40 an hour reimbursement that's been paid for the past 15 years. It's like, so why would someone do that? To offer something, and not get paid anything additional for it. And so it's been outpaced. I mean, when your services are outpaced by McDonald's, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, and that's what it is, kind of across the board. So.
I remember years ago, someone coming to me and saying, you're always advocating for more money for CPS, but there are so many of us other folks who are doing really important things and we've not had a raise. And she was coming at it from this perspective of, you don't think we're important. And I was coming from the perspective of, I didn't know you kind of existed, right? I didn't understand the complexities of the system to understand, that there are so many key players. And recruiting and retaining those people who want to do the work is really important. And so I do think Commissioner Pat, because he has been where he was with the legislature, probably knows more than other legislators did. But I think it's important to have more of advocacy work for those people to ensure that we're recruiting and keeping the right people. Because when people really care about the work that they do, you see so much better results. Okay, so
it's not always about money. I mean, you have to have enough, obviously, to survive and to keep your business running, and to keep going. But so people go into this field knowing that they're never going to be rich. Right. They're going into this field to help people. Right. But obviously, they have to pay their bills as well.
Have to survive, yeah. Harmony, we couldn't have the ASO, the social necessary division, without the clinical division. I couldn't exist. It wouldn't stand on its own. And so I know other people and I know that the Bureau of Children and Families has addressed that. We've had focus groups, we've had tons of conversation, and they do what they can do to get legislative attention. But it's not a priority. But the answer, if you invest here on the service side, on the CPS worker side, then you might have to invest a little less. And on the reunification side, on the trying to find families to take our children.
Great, excellent point.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Any final thoughts that you have before that we may not have talked about that you'd like to share on family treatment courts?
No, I just thank you for taking the time to bring about the awareness of family treatment court. It's a wonderful program and it's making a difference. And again, we didn't get to the epidemic quickly. It was, it's been a huge problem for a while, and it's going to take some time to get to a change, but we're getting there slowly. And, family treatment court is just one way to get to that positive change. And it's been a lot of great work and a lot of great people that have made a difference in this change.
I would like to see some of the pharmaceutical money that contributed to the problem be made available to solve the problem. But,
That's a really important point. Stephanie was just saying, people don't go into the work that you do just for the money. They knew that there wasn't going to be a lot of money to begin with. They want to help people. And I think a lot of our systems right now in our state feel bogged down, like they're not helping people, that it's kind of, the system is so broken that they just kind of get stuck in this process where they're not really helping, they're just maintaining. And it seems to me as if family treatment court, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it was it is kind of a light in all of this murkiness where something is working, and it shows that progress can be made. That's, good things can come, good outcomes can come. And I'm just so thankful for the work that you're doing, and appreciate you. I appreciate Beth, who just said yes with a bunch of exclamation points. So I'm glad that we have some appreciation out there, and I will put links to to Harmony Mental Health, and to, do you have a website for Family Treatment Court?
Yeah, it's on the Supreme Court's website.
Okay, we'll put that there as well. If anybody who's watching still has any questions or have anything that they want to share, please feel free to put it there. We'll keep an eye on it. Many thanks to our panelists today, the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation for their support, and attendees for this conversation. If you have any questions again or comments, please feel free to share them and we'll follow up with you. And with that, I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.